My son, my own flesh and blood, looked me in the eyes and said, "Mother, you're too old to live alone. The convent will keep you safe." Safe. That word cut deeper than a knife. I trusted him. I trusted Clara, his wife, with her sweet smiles and promises. But that day, when they drove me to the convent gates, I didn't know they were locking me away to steal everything I had. My home, my saving, my life. They thought I was finished, just a frail old woman with no fight left. Oh, how wrong they were. I raised Daniel alone after his father passed. I scrubbed floors, stitched clothes, and went hungry some nights so he could eat. I gave him everything, my love, my time, my dreams. When he married Clara, I welcomed her like a daughter. I gave them my house, the one I built with my own hands, brick by brick, after years of toil. "Live with me," I said. "There's room for us all." They smiled, nodded, and moved in. I thought we were a family, but I didn't see the greed in their eyes. I didn't see the way they whispered when I left the room. It started small. Clara would say, "Mother, you're forgetting things. Maybe you shouldn't cook anymore." Daniel would add, "You're slowing down, Ma. Let us handle the bills." I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? They were my family. But then I found the papers. Hidden in a drawer under Clara's scarves, I saw my bank statements. My savings gone. Transferred to their names. My house signed over to them. My heart pounded as I read the words. They'd forged my name. They'd taken everything. I confronted them that night. "Daniel," I said, my voice shaking, "how could you do this to me?" He didn't even flinch. Clara laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Your old mother," she said. "You don't need all that money. We're just taking care of you, taking care of me." I wanted to scream, to shake them, but Daniel grabbed my arm. "You're confused," he said. "You're not well. We found a place for you." The next morning they drove me to the convent. St. Mary's they called, a gray stone building with iron gates. The nuns greeted me with tight smiles, their eyes empty. "You'll be happy here," one said, leading me to a small room with a hard bed and a single window. I begged Daniel to let me stay home. "Please," I said, tears on my cheeks. "This is my home. Don't do this." But he turned away and Clara smirked as the gate closed behind them. I heard the lock click and I knew. They thought they'd buried me alive. That first night I sat on the bed, my hands trembling. My heart was heavy like a stone in my chest. I thought of my house, my garden, the roses I'd planted for Daniel when he was a boy. All gone, stolen. I wanted to cry, to scream, but no sound came. Instead, something else stirred inside me. A spark, a fire. They thought I was weak, too old to fight. They didn't know the strength of a mother's heart, the rage of a woman betrayed. I wasn't finished. Not yet. I looked out the window at the moon, pale and cold. "You'll regret this," I whispered. "You'll all regret this." I didn't know how, but I swore I'd make them pay. They took my home, my money, my freedom, but they couldn't take my will. I'd find a way. I'd show them what an old woman could do. The convent was a tomb of silence. That first week I sat in my tiny room, the walls pressing in like they wanted to crush me. The bed was hard, the blanket thin, and the air smelled of damp stone and candle wax. I'd lie awake at night, listening to the creak of the floorboards as the nuns walked their rounds. Their footsteps were soft, but they echoed in my heart like a warning. This place wasn't a sanctuary. It was a prison. I cried at first. Oh, how I cried! My tears soaked the pillow as I thought of Daniel, my boy, the one I'd rocked to sleep, the one I'd taught to tie his shoes. How could he do this? How could he look at me, his own mother, and throw me away like I was nothing? And Clara, her sharp eyes, her cruel smile. She'd planned it all, I was sure. She'd twisted my son's heart until it wasn't his anymore. I'd trusted them, loved them, and they'd betrayed me. The pain was a knife, twisting deeper every time I thought of my home, my garden, the life they'd stolen. But crying doesn't bring back what's lost. I learned that long ago, when my husband died and left me to raise Daniel alone. I'd been strong then, and I'd be strong now. I stopped crying by the third day. I wiped my face and sat up straight. Enough, I told myself. You're not dead yet, Margaret. That's my name, Margaret. They thought they could erase me, but I was still here, still breathing, still thinking. The nuns didn't talk much. They gave me chores, scrubbing floors, folding linens, peeling potatoes in the kitchen. I did them without complaint. I kept my head down, my hands busy, but my mind was alive. I watched. I listened. The other women here, the ones they called residents, were like ghosts. Old, frail, their eyes empty. Some mumbled to themselves, others stared at the walls. They'd given up. I wouldn't. I couldn't. One night I heard a woman crying in the next room. Soft, broken sobs. I pressed my ear to the wall, my heart aching for her. "Who's there?" I whispered, but she didn't answer. The next day, I saw her in the dining hall. A tiny woman older than me, her hands shaking as she held her spoon. Her name was Sister Agnes, though she wasn't a nun. Just another woman left here to be forgotten. I sat beside her, but she didn't look at me. "I know how it feels," I said quietly. "To be thrown away." She flinched, like my words had stung her, but she didn't speak. Days turned into weeks. The silence grew heavier, but it wasn't just the quiet of the convent. It was the silence of my life, the silence of everything I'd lost. I thought of my roses, the ones I'd planted for Daniel. Were they still blooming? Or had Clara ripped them out, like she'd ripped me from my home? I thought of my neighbors, the ones who'd wave when I walked by. Did they know I was gone? Did they care? The questions burned, but they kept me sharp. They kept me awake. I started keeping a journal, just a small notebook I found in the convent's library, hidden behind some dusty hymnals. I wrote in it at night, under the moonlight, when the nuns wouldn't see. I wrote about Daniel, about Clara, about the papers I'd found. I wrote down every hurt, every betrayal. It wasn't just to remember, it was to fuel me. Each word was a brick in the wall of my resolve. I'd make them pay. I didn't know how yet, but I'd find a way. One evening, as I scrubbed the kitchen floor, I overheard two nuns whispering. "She's too curious," one said. "Always watching." I froze, my rag dripping in my hand. They were talking about me. "Let her be," the other said. "She's just an old woman. What harm can she do?" I smiled to myself, small and secret. They thought I was harmless. Good. Let them think that. It would make my revenge sweeter. Sister Agnes became my shadow. She never spoke, but she'd sit near me, her eyes following my hands as I worked. One day, she slipped a piece of paper under my door. It was crumpled, the ink smudged, but I could read it. "They're lying to you," it said. "The convent isn't what it seems." My heart raced. I looked at the paper, then at the door. Agnes knew something big, and whatever it was the key to my freedom and my revenge. I hid the note under my mattress, my hands shaking like leaves in the wind. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind spun with question. What lies hid in these walls? Why did Agnes warn me? I'd come here thinking it was just a place for old folks to fade away. But now I felt eyes on me, shadows moving where they shouldn't. The convent's peace was a mask, and Agnes had cracked it just a little. I had to find her, had to hear her story. But how? The nuns watched us like hawks, and speaking out of turn meant punishment, extra chores, or worse, the dark room they called reflection. The next morning I rose early, before the bell rang for prayers. I slipped into the hallway, my slippers soft on the cold floor. Agnes's door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling out. I knocked lightly, my heart pounding. "Agnes," I whispered. No answer. I pushed the door open and saw her sitting by the window, her frail body wrapped in a shawl. She turned, her eyes wide with fear, but then she nodded like she'd been waiting. "Come in," she rasped, her voice like dry paper. Quickly, I shut the door behind me and sat on the edge of her bed. The room smelled of medicine and regret. "What is it?" I asked. "What are they hiding?" Agnes leaned forward, her hands twisting in her lap. "This place, it's not holy," she said. "It's a trap for women like us. They take our money, our homes, just like your family did to you." My breath caught. "How did she know?" "I heard you talking in your sleep," she admitted. "Names, betrayal, I know the signs." She told me everything, her words tumbling out like a dam breaking. Agnes had been here 5 years, left by her nephew who'd forged papers to claim her farm. The convent, St. Mary's, was run by Mother Superior Eleanor, a woman with a serpent's smile. Elena and the board, rich men from the town, took donations from families dumping their elders. But it wasn't just that. They had deals with doctors, slipping pills into our foods to keep us weak, confused. They sell our stories, Agnes said, to newspapers saying we're happy, peaceful. But some of us, we disappear. Disappear? My stomach twisted. Where? I asked. The old cemetery out back, she whispered. Or worse. They say accidents, but I've seen the bruises. Agnes showed me a scar on her arm, thin and white. I fought back, found letters they wrote promising families kickbacks. They beat me for it. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm dying now, Margaret. The cancer's eating me. But you're strong. You can expose them. Expose them. The word lit a fire in me. Not just revenge on Daniel and Clara, but on this whole rotten place. I thought of the other women, the ghosts in the halls. We weren't alone in our pain. How? I asked. What proof? She pulled a small box from under her bed, locked with a rusty clasp. Inside were papers, letters, bank records, even photos of women who'd left but never did. I stole them over years, she said. Hid them bit by bit. Take it. Use it. I took the box, my hand steady now. This was gold. Proof of theft, lies, maybe even murder. Why me? I asked. Agnes smiled weakly. Because I see the fire in you, the one they can't put out. We hugged then, her bones fragile against me. Be careful, he warned. Elena knows everything. She has spies. I left her room as the bell rang, the box hidden in my dress. All day, I worked in the laundry, my mind racing. The pain of betrayal burned hotter now, mixed with this new rage. Daniel and Clara had handed me to wolves, thinking I'd wither, but I'd turn their weapon against them. I'd get out, take the proof to the police, the papers, make the convent pay, and my family too. That night, I wrote in my journal, copying the letters word for word. Names, dates, amounts stolen. Elena's signature on everyone. It was a web of greed, and I was the spider now. But danger lurked. During dinner, a nun, Sister Ruth with her pinched face, stared at me too long. You look troubled, Margaret, she said, her voice sweet poison. Confess to Mother Superior. I smiled back. Just missing my family, I lied. Inside I plotted. I needed an ally outside. A phone? No, they were locked away. Mail? Watched. But there was the gardener, old Tom, who came twice a week. He was kind, slipped me apples sometimes. Maybe he could carry a message. Days passed, tense and silent. Agnes grew weaker, coughing in the night. I visited when I could, feeding her stories of my plan to keep her spirits up. You'll see justice, I promised. But one morning she was gone. Her room empty, bed made neat. Panic hit me like a wave. Where's Agnes? I asked Sister Ruth. She smirked. Transferred. For her health. Lies. I knew it. They'd silenced her. My hands clenched. No more waiting. I had to act. I started small. During chores, I memorized the routines. The guards at the gate, the times the nuns slept. I hid the box in the chapel, behind a loose stone in the wall. Safe for now. Then I waited for Tom. He came on Thursday, clipping hedges. I approached him by the roses. Ironic, thinking of my own garden. Tom, I need help. A letter to the sheriff. He froze, eyes darting. Dangerous, ma'am, he said. They watched, but I saw pity in his face. Please, I begged. For Agnes, for all of us. He nodded slow. Hide it in the shed. I'll take it tomorrow. I wrote the letter that night. Simple words. Help. St. Mary's Convent. Theft and worse. Proof inside. Margaret. I sealed it, heart pounding. The next day, Tom was gone too. Had they caught him? Or was he my way out? The silence pressed harder now, but it fueled me. I wasn't alone anymore. Agnes's truth had awakened something fierce. Revenge wasn't just for me. It was for every betrayed soul here. Daniel, Clara, Elena, they'd all fall. I'd make sure of it. As weeks dragged on, I gathered more. Snippets from other residents, whispers of missing jewelry, forced signature. One woman, Edith, told me her daughter had visited once, bribed to stay away. They own us, she cried. I comforted her, promised change. Inside, the plan grew. First, escape. Then expose the convent. Finally, confront my son. The pain twisted into purpose. I felt strong, alive. They'd underestimated me, and that would be their end. One night, a knock at my door. Soft, urgent. I opened it to find Sister Ruth, eyes cold. Mother Superior wants you, she said. My blood ran cold. Had they found the box? The letter? I followed, steps heavy but my mind sharp. Whatever came, I was ready. The truth was out, and it couldn't be caged again. I followed Sister Ruth through the dim corridors, my slippers whispering on the stone. My heart thudded, but I kept my face blank, like I was just an old woman, scared and obedient. Inside, my mind was a storm. Had they found the box? Had Tom betrayed me? Or worse, had they caught him? I thought of Agnes, gone without a trace, and my stomach twisted. I wouldn't let them do that to me, not without a fight. Mother Superior. Eleanor's office was at the end of the hall, a heavy oak door with a cross carved deep. Sister Ruth knocked and a voice called, "Enter." Eleanor sat behind a desk, her hands folded, her face smooth as marble. She was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with eyes like a snake's, cold, unblinking. "Margaret," she said, her voice soft but sharp, "you've been restless." I stood straight, my hands clasped to hide their trembling. "Just homesick, Mother," I said, my voice small. She tilted her head, studying me. "Homesickness can lead to trouble," she said. "Confess your sins and find peace." Sins. The word made my blood boil. My sin was trusting my son, loving my family. Their sin was stealing my life. But I nodded, eyes down. "I'll pray," I lied. Eleanor smiled, thin and false. "Good. Sister Ruth, take her to reflection tonight." Reflection. The dark room. My heart sank, but I kept my face still. As Ruth led me out, I caught Elena's glance, a warning. She knew something. Maybe not the box, maybe not the letter, but she sensed my fire. Good. Let her sense it. It'd blind her when I struck. Back in my room, I sat on the bed, my mind racing. Reflection was a punishment. A tiny windowless cell. No light, no sound. They'd lock me there for hours, maybe days. I'd heard women come back broken, their spirits crushed. But I wasn't them. I'd used the time, plan every step. The box was safe behind the chapel stone. The letter, I prayed, was with Tom, on its way to the sheriff. But I needed more. Allies. Proof. A way out. I thought of Edith, the woman who'd whispered about her daughter. She was scared, but she trusted me. Maybe others would too. That night Ruth came for me. She didn't speak, just pointed to the hall. I followed, head high. The reflection room was in the basement, a cold, damp place that smelled of mold. She locked the door, and darkness swallowed me. No bed, no chair, just walls and silence. I sat on the floor, my back against the stone, and closed my eyes. The dark didn't scare me. It was where my plan grew. I thought of Daniel and Clara first. They'd sold me out thinking I'd rot here. I pictured their smug faces, living in my house, spending my money. The pain cut deep, but it fueled me. I'd get out, get to the sheriff, show the world their lies. But the convent was bigger. Agnes's papers proved theft, maybe murder. If I could get those to the right hands, Eleanor would fall. The board too, those greedy men in town. I'd ruin them all. In the dark, I mapped it out. Step 1. Find more allies. Edith was a start, but there were others. Women like me, betrayed and forgotten. Step 2. Get the box to Tom or someone else outside. Step 3. Escape. The convent's gates were locked, but I'd seen the delivery trucks come and go. Maybe I could hide in one, or bribe a driver. My mind spun, piecing it together. The reflection room was meant to break me, but it was making me sharper. Hours passed, maybe days. My knees ached, my stomach growled, but I didn't care. I whispered my plan to myself, over and over until it was carved in my heart. When Ruth finally opened the door, I blinked at the light, my face calm. "Learned your lesson?" she asked, smirking. "Yes," I said softly. She didn't know I'd learned more than she could imagine. Back in my room, I moved fast. I wrote a note to Edith, slipped it under her door. "Meet me in the chapel midnight. We fight back." I didn't know if she'd come, but I had to try. That night I crept to the chapel, my heart pounding. The moon lit the stained glass windows, casting red and blue shadows. Edith was there, her hands shaking. "Margaret," she whispered, "this is dangerous." I took her hand. "So is staying silent," I said. "They took your daughter's love. They took my home. We can stop them." She nodded, tears in her eyes. I told her about Agnes's box, the proof. "We need more." Letters, stories, anything they've stolen from others. Edith knew 2 other women. Mary and Rose, who'd been forced to sign over their homes. They're scared, she said. But I'll talk to them. My heart lifted, a spark of hope. We were small, but we were growing. Over the next week, I worked in secret. I met Mary and Rose, listened to their stories. Mary's son had taken her jewelry, Rose's sister her savings. Both were here, locked away like me. I wrote their words in my journal, every detail. I told them about the box, about Tom. If we get this out, I said, they'll pay. They nodded, their eyes hard with the same fire I felt, but danger was close. Sister Ruth watched me more, her eyes narrowing when I passed. One day, I saw her near the chapel, lingering too long. Did she know about the box? I couldn't risk it. That night, I moved it to the library behind a shelf of old Bible. My hands shook as I hid it, but I felt strong. They could lock me up, watch me, but they couldn't stop me. Tom came back the next day, his face pale. I caught him by the shed, pretending to weed the roses. Did you send it? I whispered. He nodded quick. Sheriff got it, but they're watching me now. Be careful. My heart soared. Hope, but fear followed. If they knew about Tom, they'd come for me next. I had to move faster. I gathered my allies. Edith, Mary, Rose. We met in whispers, planning. Edith knew a driver, a young man named Paul, who might help. He's kind, she said. His mother's here too. I wrote another letter detailing the convent's crime and gave it to Edith for Paul. If I don't get out, I told her. You do. She hugged me, fierce and strong. The plan was set. I'd wait for the sheriff's move, or Paul's. I'd keep gathering proof, keep my allies close. Daniel, Clara, Elena. They'd feel my wrath. The pain of their betrayal was my strength now. Every step, every whisper brought me closer. They thought they'd buried me. But I was rising, and I'd bring their world down with me. The days blurred into a tense rhythm of whispers and watchful eyes. My allies, Edith, Mary, Rose, and I moved like shadows, passing notes under doors, meeting in the dim corners of the laundry room when the nuns weren't looking. Each story they shared added weight to the box of proof. Forged signatures, missing inheritances, even a ledger Edith had glimpsed in Elena's office, listing donations that were really thefts. My journal grew sick with their words, a testament to the pain we'd all endured. But planning wasn't enough. I needed to strike first, to test the waters, to show them we weren't ghosts anymore. It started with Paul, the delivery driver Edith had mentioned. He came on Tuesdays, unloading crates of food and supplies from his truck, his broad shoulders hunched under the weight. Edith's mother, frail but sharp-eyed, had caught his attention before, slipping him small gifts, a knitted scarf, a prayer card. Now it was our turn. I watched him from the kitchen window, my hands in soapy water, pretending to wash dishes. He was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes that darted nervously to the gates. When he finished unloading, I nodded to Edith. It was time. That afternoon, as the nuns dozed after lunch, Edith approached him near the back door. I couldn't hear their words, but I saw her hand him the letter, the one detailing the convent's sins with a plea for help. Paul's face paled, but he tucked it into his pocket without a word. He glanced at the nuns, then back at Edith, and nodded once. Hope flickered in me like a candle in the wind. If he took it to the police, or even a newspaper, the walls would start to crack. But I couldn't wait for him. I needed my own strike, something to rattle Elena and her spies. Sister Ruth was the weakest link, always watching, always reporting. If I could distract her, plant doubt, it would buy us time. That night in the chapel, I knelt before the altar, my rosary beads clicking softly. The other women prayed their rote words, but I whispered my own, a plan for revenge, not against God, but against the devil's in habits. As the service ended, I accidentally dropped my beads near Ruth's feet. She bent to pick them up, and I leaned close. "I've seen things," I murmured, my voice trembling like I was scared. "Papers in the library. They don't belong there." Ruth's eyes widened just a fraction. "What papers?" she hissed. I shrugged, feigning confusion. "Old ones. About money." I shouldn't have looked. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Tell Mother Superior." But I saw the greed in her eyes. Greed for favor, Or maybe a cut of the spoils. I pulled away, heart racing. The seed was planted. Would she tell Elena or keep it for herself? Either way, it would stir the pot. The next morning, chaos rippled through the convent. Sister Ruth was called to Elena's office, her face ashen when she emerged. She glared at me across the dining hall, but there was fear there too. Good. The first strike had landed. Whispers spread among the nuns. Something about missing files, audits from the town. Elena tightened the rules. No more unsupervised chores, doors locked earlier. But in the pressure, cracks formed. One nun, young and hesitant, slipped me a note during laundry. I know about the donations. Help us too? Another ally. The fire was spreading. Emboldened, I targeted the board next. Those men in town, Mr. Hargrove, the banker, Dr. Ellis, the crooked doctor, and Judge Harlan, who signed off on our commitments. Agnes's box had their names, their signatures on the thefts. I needed to get word to someone who could hurt them. Tom the gardener was still coming, despite the risks. I met him by the roses again, my hands dirty from weeding. "Tom," I said low, "do you know Hargrove?" He nodded, wary. "Everyone does. Owns half the town." I pressed a folded paper into his glove, the copy of a letter from the box, incriminating Hargrove in a big donation scam. "Take this to his wife, anonymously. Let us see what he does." Tom hesitated, but the pity in his eyes won. "For you, ma'am." "But this could end me." I squeezed his arm. "It'll save us all." He left with it hidden in his toolbox. My first real blow against the outside world. If Hargrove's wife talked, the town would buzz. Reputations would crack before the convent's walls did. Back inside, the tension built. Edith told me Paul had returned the next Tuesday, his eyes meeting hers with a nod. The letter was sent. To whom? We didn't know, but hope grew. Mary and Rose gathered more stories. One woman confessed her pension checks were rerouted to Elena's accounts. I added it all to the journal, my handwriting steady despite the fear gnawing at me. Nights were the worst, lying awake, wondering if Ruth would drag me to reflection again, or if Elena had found the box in the library. Then the backlash hit. One evening, as I folded linens, Sister Ruth cornered me in the storeroom. "You lying old hag!" She spat, her breath hot on my face. "Those papers, they're gone. You stole them." I feigned shock, my hands trembling for show. "I don't know what you mean." She slapped me hard, the sting blooming on my cheek. Pain shot through me, but I didn't cry out. Instead, I stared her down, my eyes hard. "Hit me again," I whispered, "and God sees." She backed away, fear flickering, but called for help. Two other nuns dragged me to Elena. In the office, Elena paced, her calm mask slipping. "Margaret, you've caused trouble," she said, her voice ice. Whispers. "Missing things. Confess, and we'll forgive." I sat straight, the slaps mark throbbing. The pain of Daniel's betrayal surged back, hot, familiar. "Forgive?" I said, my voice steady for the first time. "Like you forgave Agnes." Her eyes narrowed. "Who?" But I saw the flinch. I leaned forward. "I know everything. The thefts, the disappearances. It ends now." She laughed, cold and sharp. "An old woman's delusions. Lock her up." They took me to reflection again, but this time it was different. As the door locked, I smiled in the dark. The strike had worked. Elena was rattled, Ruth divided. My allies would keep moving the proof. Outside, wheels were turning. Paul's letter, Tom's delivery, the growing whispers. Daniel and Clara thought I was gone, but soon they'd hear my name on the wind. Days in the dark fueled me. I recited the plan. Allies strong, proof hidden, strikes landing. When they released me, weaker but unbroken, Edith was waiting. "Paul says the sheriff's coming," she whispered. "Inspections." My heart leaped. The first strike had drawn blood. Now for the killing blow. But revenge burned for my son too. In the quiet moments, I pictured confronting him, seeing regret in his eyes. Clara's smugness shattered. The convent was the cage, but they were the jailers. I'd free us all and make them kneel. The inspections came sudden like a storm. Sheriff's men at the gates, questions flying. Elena smiled through it, but sweat beaded her brow. They searched rooms, asked us about donations. I kept silent, eyes down, but inside triumph sang. One resident spoke up, Rose, brave Rose, about her missing savings. The sheriff noted it. Chaos followed. Nuns scrambling, board members called in. Hargrove's wife had talked. The town paper ran a story, vague but pointed. Convent under scrutiny. Elena blamed me, of course. "You did this," she hissed in the hall. I met her gaze. Justice did. Ruth was reassigned, her loyalty cracked. My allies grew bolder, more women joining our whispers. The first strike had opened the floodgates. Now escape was close, and with it, my true revenge on Daniel and Clara. They'd locked me away, but I'd risen stronger. The world was shifting, and I was the force behind it. As the sheriff left, promising to return, I slipped to the library, checked the box. Still safe. One more push, and it would all crumble. My heart, once broken, now beat with power. They'd regret the day they betrayed me. The sheriff's visits became regular, like clockwork, each one peeling back another layer of the convent's rotten core. I stayed close, refusing to be shuttled off to some temporary home like the other women. "I started this," I told the deputy assigned to watch me. "I'll see it end." He was a young man, kind enough, with a mustache that didn't quite hide his boyish face. He nodded, letting me linger in the shadows of the hallways, listening as they questioned more nuns, more residents. The masks were falling one by one, and I was there to watch them hit the ground. Sister Ruth was the first to crack. I'd planted that doubt in her, and it grew like weeds in a neglected garden. They brought her into the makeshift interrogation room, an old chapel parlor now stripped of its holy pictures. I stood outside the door, ear pressed to the wood, my breath shallow. "I didn't know about the deaths," she sobbed, her voice muffled but clear. "Elena said they were accidents. I took the money for my family." "Money? Of course." Kickbacks from the board, skimmed from our stolen savings. The sheriff pressed her and she spilled names. Hargrove, Ellis, Harlan, the board members who'd signed off on our imprisonments. "They paid us to keep quiet," she confessed, "to drug the ones who talked too much." I clenched my fist, thinking of Agnes, her frail body wasted away. Ruth's betrayal wasn't just to us. It was to her vows, to God himself. But her tears didn't move me. Let her feel the weight. When they led her out cuffed and weeping, our eyes met. "You," she whispered, hate in her gaze. I didn't flinch. "Me," I said softly. One mask down. Elena held out longer, her serpent calm cracking only in pieces. They kept her in her office, under guard, while they rifled through her file. I was allowed in once to identify papers from Agnes's box. She sat there, hands folded, eyes cold. "Margaret," she said, as if we were old friends, "this is a misunderstanding. Your family wanted the best for you. The best." The word twisted in my gut. "My family stole from me," I said, my voice hard. "And you helped them." She smiled, thin and sharp. "We all have sins." But the sheriff showed her the ledgers, pages of forged signatures, including mine. Her smile faded. "I did it for the convent," she muttered. "To keep it running." Lies. The deputies found bank records, transfers to her personal accounts. Hundreds of thousands siphoned from women like me. She broke then, naming accomplices, blaming the board. "Hargrove started it," she said. "He needed funds for his bank. Ellis provided the drugs. Harlan covered the legal side." The masks fell faster now. Arrests rolled in. Hargrove dragged from his mansion, Ellis from his clinic, Harlan from the courthouse. The town paper screamed headlines. "Convent scandal rocks community." I read every word, my heart pounding with a mix of pain and triumph. These men had played God with our lives, but now they were mortal, exposed. But the convent was only part of it. My thoughts turned to Daniel and Clara, snug in my house, thinking they were safe. The sheriff had questioned them early, but they denied everything. Their lawyers spinning tales of my confusion. I knew better. The pain of their betrayal burned fresh every night, keeping me awake. "We need more on them," I told the sheriff. "Connect them to Elena." He nodded. "We're digging." Dig they did. From Ruth's confession, a trail led back. Emails, payments. Daniel had met Elena, arranged my placement for a fee. Clara had forged the papers, her handwriting matched by experts. I struck next through the allies I'd made. Edith, now free and living with her daughter, called me at the temporary phone the sheriff gave. "Margaret," she said, voice strong, "I've talked to others. More stories like yours. She sent letters, testimonies from women whose families had colluded with the convent. One mentioned Clara by name. She'd bragged at a town meeting about handling her mother-in-law. I handed them over, watching the case build. The masks were slipping from my own blood. The day came when they brought Daniel in again. I insisted on being there, in the observation room behind glass. He looked smaller, his shoulders hunched, face pale under the harsh lights. "I didn't know," he stammered to the sheriff. "Clara said it was legal." Lies. The evidence piled up. Forgeries, bank transfers to their accounts. My savings funneled through Elena. He broke like glass under a hammer. "We needed the money," he sobbed, "for the baby. Clara's pregnant. A baby. My grandchild." The news hit like a wave, mixing rage with a deep, aching sorrow. He'd sold his mother for a future I would have given freely. Clara was tougher, her mask of sweetness cracking to reveal the venom beneath. "That old woman was losing her mind," she snarled. "We did her a favor, but the papers didn't lie. Her signature on the deeds, her emails to Elena. You'll pay for this," she hissed as they cuffed her. Through the glass I whispered, "You already are." Their secrets spilled, one by one. The lies they'd told neighbors, the debts they'd hidden using my money. The town turned on them. Friends deserted, jobs lost. I made sure they felt it, every sting. As the trials loomed, more fell. Dr. Ellis confessed to overprescribing, his license revoked. Judge Harlan resigned in disgrace, his rulings questioned. Hargrove's bank faced audits, his empire crumbling. Each fall was a balm to my wounds, but the emotional toll weighed heavy. Nights, I wept for what was lost. My son's love was twisted by greed, yet strength rose from the ashes. I'd been silent once, but no more. One evening, as rain pattered on the convent's roof, now empty, echoing, I sat with my journal, writing the end of this chapter. The masks had fallen, revealing the ugly truth beneath, but justice wasn't done. I needed to face them, deliver the final blow. My heart beat steady now, ready for what came next. The trial started like a slow fire, burning away the last remnants of their lies. I sat in the courtroom every day, my old hands folded in my lap, my back straight against the hard wooden bench. The air smelled of polished oak and nervous sweat, and the judge's gavel echoed like a heartbeat. Elena was first, her habit replaced by a plain dress, her face stripped of that false serenity. She stood before the judge, pleading not guilty, but the evidence was a mountain. Ledgers, confessions from Ruth, the box Agnes had hidden. I took the stand when they called me, my voice clear despite the tremble in my knees. "She locked us away," I said, looking right at her. "Stole our lives, our money. For what? Greed." The jury watched, their faces hard. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, I felt a weight lift, but it wasn't enough. Justice was coming, but revenge was mine to deliver. The board members followed one by one. Hargrove, the banker, blustered about misunderstandings. His fancy suit rumpled, but the papers showed his hands in every theft, his bank accounts swollen with our savings. I trusted him, one woman testified, her voice breaking. He was my neighbor. I nodded from my seat, remembering how he'd smiled at town meetings, hiding his wolf's teeth. Guilty. Ellis, the doctor, admitted to the drugs. His license gone, his practice shuttered. "It was just to keep them calm," he mumbled. Calm. Like we were animals to be sedated. Guilty. Harlan, the judge, lost his robe in disgrace, his rulings overturned. The town he'd ruled now spat his name. Each guilty verdict was a brick pulled from their empire, and I watched it crumble, my pain turning to a quiet fire. But my eyes were on Daniel and Clara. Their trial was last, the courtroom packed with reporters, neighbors, even some from the convent. I walked in early, choosing a seat in front, where they couldn't avoid my gaze. Daniel looked broken already, his hair graying, his eyes hollow. Clara sat beside him, her belly rounded with the baby, but her face was sharp, defiant. The prosecutor laid it out. Forgery, theft, conspiracy with Elena, my house deed, my bank records, emails between Clara and the convent. "They betrayed their own blood," he said, pointing at them. "For money." Whispers rippled through the crowd. When I took the stand again, the room went silent. Daniel, I said, looking at him, I raised you alone, gave you everything, and you threw me away. Tears welled in his eyes, but I didn't stop. Clara, you smiled to my face while you plotted. You took my home, my garden, my roses. She glared, but I saw the crack, the fear. I told it all. The discovery of the papers, the drive to the convent, the lock clicking shut. They thought I was done. I finished, my voice strong. But a mother's love turns to steel when betrayed. The jury leaned forward, hanging on every word. Their defense was weak. Daniel sobbed apologies, blaming Clara. She pushed me, he said. Clara snapped back, calling him weak. The masks fell completely then, their ugliness bare for all. The evidence sealed it. Witnesses from the bank, neighbors who'd heard their boasts, even Ruth confirming the kickbacks. Guilty. The word rang out, and Clara wailed, clutching her belly. Daniel hung his head. Sentencing came quick. Prison time, restitution. They'd pay back every penny, lose the house, face the shame. But that wasn't the end. I asked for a private moment after the gavel fell. The sheriff arranged it in a small room off the court. Guards outside, but just us three. Daniel and Clara sat chained, faces ashen. I stood before them, my old frame tall with the strength I'd found. Why? I asked, my voice soft but cutting. Daniel broke first. Ma, I'm so sorry. We were desperate. The debts, Clara interrupted, sneering. You were a burden, old, forgetful. I stepped closer, my eyes on hers. Burden? I built that life for you, and now you'll raise that child knowing what you. He flinched, hand on her belly. The baby? I nodded. My grandchild. I'll be there for them, not you. You'll rot in prison regretting every day. Daniel reached out, but the chains stopped him. Forgive me, Ma. Forgive. The word hung heavy. I thought of the isolation, the pain, the silence that had nearly broken me. Forgiveness is earned, I said. You took my trust. Now live with the loss. I turned away, leaving them to their tears. Outside, the air was fresh, the sun warm on my face. Justice had been served. The courts had their say. But my revenge was in their regret, the knowledge that I'd risen from the ashes they'd thrown me into. I went home that day, to my house, my garden. The roses bloomed red and fierce like my heart. Neighbors welcomed me, shame in their eyes for not seeing sooner. I forgave them. They weren't the betrayers. Inside, I sat in my old chair, the one by the window, and wrote the last pages in my journal. The convent was gone, a scandal fading in the papers. Elena and the others behind bars. Daniel and Clara too, their lives shattered. Peace settled over me, slow and sweet. I'd planned in the dark, executed in the light, and now justice was mine. But one last thing. The baby came months later, born in prison. I visited, held the tiny girl in my arms. You'll know, love, I whispered. Not betrayal. Clara watched from her bed, eyes empty. Daniel wrote letters begging. I didn't answer. They'd regret forever, and I'd found my strength, my peace. The days after the trial stretched long and quiet, like the calm after a storm has passed. I woke each morning in my own bed, the sunlight filtering through the curtains I'd sewn years ago, the smell of fresh coffee brewing in my kitchen. No more convent walls, no more whispers in the dark. My house was mine again, every corner scrubbed clean of their touch. I tended the garden, my hands in the soil, coaxing the roses back to life. They bloomed brighter that spring, as if they knew the battle was won. Neighbors stopped by with pies and apologies, their eyes full of regret for not seeing the truth sooner. We should have known, Mrs. Ellis said, her voice trembling. I patted her hand. We all learn, I replied, but inside, the victory was mine alone. I visited the baby often, little Anna, with her father's eyes, but none of his weakness. The social workers arranged it, letting me hold her in the prison visiting room, her tiny fingers wrapping around mine. Clara watched from behind the glass, her face gaunt, her spirit broken. Take care of her, she muttered once, tears streaking her makeup. I nodded but said nothing. Words weren't needed. Her regret was plain. Daniel wrote letters, pages of pleas and promises. I'll change, Ma, he scrawled. When I get out, I burned them in the fireplace, watching the ashes rise. Change? Too late. They'd feel the silence now, the isolation they'd forced on me. The convent stood empty, its gates chained, weeds claiming the paths. I walked there once just to see. The stone walls loomed grey and cold, but they held no power anymore. Agnes's grave was in the back, unmarked until I paid for a stone. Agnes who spoke truth. Edith and the others visited too, laying flowers, sharing stories. We formed a group, us survivors, meeting monthly to laugh, to cry, to remind each other of our strength. "You led us," Edith said at our first gathering. I shook my head. We led each other, but in my heart I knew the spark had been mine, kindled in that cold cell. Life settled into a rhythm, simple and sweet. I baked bread, read books from the library, watched the sun set over my garden. The pain lingered, a dull ache on rainy days, but it didn't rule me. I turned it into power, planned my revenge in the shadows, executed it step by step. Elena rotted in prison, her empire dust. The board members lost everything, homes, reputations, freedom. Daniel and Clara faced years behind bars, their child safe from their greed. Justice had come, not loud and flashy, but quiet, like a grandmother's whisper. One evening, as the stars came out, I sat on my porch, a shawl around my shoulders. The wind carried the scent of roses, and I closed my eyes, feeling the peace wrap around me. They thought me weak, too old to fight, but I'd shown them the strength of silence, the power of patience. My victory wasn't in their fall, but in my rise. I was free, whole at last, and in that quiet I knew they'd never forget.